lot of stuff happening today in the world of the Philadelphia Eagles, including Gardner-Johnson taking a massive shot at former defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon. Nick Sirianni raves at the NFL Combine regarding Sean Desai and new offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. Also, Jakib Media wants to trade Darius. What? And finally, we have a live show coming up tonight. Stay tuned for that. I'm Thomas Mott. This is The Thomas Mott Show. What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome to The Thomas Mott Show on a Wednesday. There's so much going on this week due to the NFL Combine and all the GMs and owners all in one spot right now, along with coaches at the NFL Combine. And Philadelphia, there's almost too much to cover, but let's start with the crazy news of the morning, something that just dropped, and that is Gardner-Johnson really taking a shot at Jonathan Gannon on Twitter, saying what we all were thinking about the Super Bowl, and then deleting the tweet, and of course, a lot more following that. So here's Dov Kleiman with the screenshot, because this was a tweet that was out there for 10, 15 minutes, and then deleted. You see Gardner-Johnson quote tweeting an Elliott Shore-Parks video, where it's basically just Jonathan Gannon saying what went wrong in the second half, and Gannon, falls on the sword as he has done in multiple interviews here, and says, oh, it's my fault, I should have done more to adjust, didn't do what was right by my players. And then Gardner-Johnson said, you ain't put us in position to make plays, with the shrug emoji, and then he tweeted later that he was just going to go back to bed, and then he deleted both tweets. And so this is Gardner-Johnson saying what we were all saying after the Super Bowl, and that Jonathan Gannon really didn't make enough adjustments in the second half to stop Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. And so it's not necessarily a surprise here. What's going to garner a lot of attention is the fact that a former player of his, really a recent former player of his, is taking a shot. And you wonder how many other Eagle defensive players felt the same way. Now, a couple of things to note here. One, Gardner-Johnson is a free agent. He's a pending free agent at least. And so this is not necessarily a good look for him in terms of other teams wanting to bring somebody in, because you don't take shots at your coaches publicly. Just kind of a thing there. Now, again, he's not his coach anymore because he's not going to go to the Arizona Cardinals, but still, it's not the best of looks from a player looking for a big-time contract coming up in free agency. And also, you do wonder why the Eagles tried so hard to bring back Jonathan Gannon if both CJ Gardner-Johnson and other Eagle players felt the same way, which you presumably think that they do. In the end, they get Sean Desai, which we'll talk about here in just 1 second, which is great news for Eagle fans, because I think this hopefully means you're going to get a better defensive outlook than Jonathan Gannon did. But what a bizarre, funny, let's be honest, we're all thinking this again, funny little swipe on Twitter here, but something that seems to be a little bit overblown, and you're going to see a lot of tweets about it. Overall, not a big deal, but aren't you glad that Jonathan Gannon is gone? Thumbs up for Jonathan Gannon not being with the Eagles. I really hope Sean Desai is going to be the guy, no pun intending. We'll see what Nick Sirianni said about him in just 1 second. First, though, I do want to mention we have our weekly live Wednesday night show coming up tonight, probably 6:45, 7 p.m. Eastern time start. Myself, Josh Davis of the Philly Special Show. Told you guys last week. First one was last week. We're doing this every single week here. I'd love to get 300 plus people live watching. I think that'd be so much fun. Mark your calendars. Come on, hang out, ask some questions. We're calling this the Wednesday Link, spelled L-I-N-C. Talking a lot about all the new hires tonight, and obviously the running back situation, and why I think the Eagles should go for Leonard Fournette. So more on that later tonight. Again, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Don't be late. Tonight's going to be a lot of fun. Myself and Josh Davis. Now, going over here to Sean Desai, the new defensive coordinator. I've talked about him in a short yesterday. I think it's a fantastic hire. No problem here. I get the Vic Fangio connection. I think he's going to do a lot of good things for the Eagles defense. Take it to that next level that Gannon couldn't do. But I really like what Nick Sirianni said about Sean Desai when asked yesterday at the NFL Scouting Combine. Quote, so not to give everything away, but I did like some of the similarities to the things that we've been already been doing here on a very successful defense with different coverages, different blitzes, things like that. And of course, when asked about what happens with the other candidates, like Denard Wilson, quote, my job was to go through the process and just like we do with everything, cast a wide net and get to know different people, get to talk to different people, get to see who is ready for the job. I think we interviewed a really good group of guys and was really impressed by all of them, actually. Just at the end of the day, obviously some experience that Sean Desai has had calling it, but also just I have had to do what I feel was best for the team. I feel like Sean was the best guy for the job. And then he was asked about Sean Desai and possibly Denard Wilson, and he said he'd be lucky to have him back. We know how good of a coach he is, but that's not necessarily finalized, as we don't know what Sean wants to do in terms of some of these other coaching positions. So really good praise from him. Nick Sirianni on Sean Desai. Obviously, a lot of people talking about his football IQ. Pete Carroll talked about that as well. I think this is a very solid hire for the Eagles, and I do think he's going to provide that little bit of, I'd say, flair and change, and things that Jonathan Gannon was just completely unable to do. Now, if he's able to do this next story coming from Bleeding Green Nation, I think it's further going to make the Eagle defense even better, and that is bringing back Mike Pettine, possibly to joining the Eagles coaching staff. Now, if you see the picture, you recognize Mike Pettine as a former head coach of the National Football League who didn't really work out, but there's connection from Desai and Pettine, and it makes a lot of sense. Here's this, quote, "The Eagles are reportedly hiring Sean Desai as their defensive coordinator, and it appears they might hire a former Desai associate to work with him. Jeff Mosher reports he is hearing that Minnesota Vikings assistant head coach Mike Pettine could join the Eagles coaching staff. Pettine joined the Vikings with his current title in 2022 after serving as a senior defensive assistant for the Bears in 2021. Same year Desai served as Chicago's defensive coordinator. Given Desai's relative youth, turns 40 in April, the inexperience, one season as DC, there's some sense in adding a more seasoned coach to assist him. Pettine fits the bill considering he's been coaching in the NFL since 2004 and has held the defensive coordinator roles with the Jets, Bills, and Packers. Pettine was also the Cleveland Browns head coach for 2 years in 2014 and 2015. As an added bonus, Pettine is a local guy. The Doylestown, PA native, attended high school at CB West, end quote. So this has not been official and not been finalized yet, but it is a report that Pettine could join the staff. I think that would be fantastic. We always talked about why we wanted Vic Fangio, because he was that experienced defensive coordinator who has seen every single type of offensive play and has all these different coverages and stuff, and yet you bring in a young guy like Desai and you go, okay, how experienced is he? 1 year as defensive coordinator, bringing in Pettine alongside him to be his, assistant defensive coordinator or DB coach or D-line coach, whatever you want to give him the title in terms of that, I think would be great to get multiple minds working this defense the way they can try to be a lot better than they were in 2022, which again, they were great in 2022, but they can be a lot better against those good quarterbacks, hopefully, in 2023. Okay, I want to go over to this. This was something that popped up on my Twitter feed a couple of days ago. Inside the Eagles has a good breakdown of it. But Jakib Sports, obviously Eagles content creators, a lot of big-time names in terms of, Eagle broadcasting. They have some hot takes here and there. I think that they do a great job. I think Derrick Gunn is absolutely fantastic. We'd love to interview him on the show one day. But his take on Darius Slay that came out just the other day was a little bit strange. Here it is on trading Darius Slay. Quote, "Here's somebody that we know will be back next season. How about a hand for two-time Pro Bowler in Eagles green Darius Slay? No, wait, Jakib Sports' Derrick Gunn believes Slay could make sense as trade bait. Are we certain he meant Slay and not Quez Watkins? Anyway, check this one if you're looking for something to talk about at work this AM." And here's what he said, quote, "Don't be surprised if the Eagles try to use Darius Slay as trade bait to get out from under his contract. Slay has 3 void years at the end of his contract following a restructuring and is due $26.1 million in 2023. He represents $21.2 million in dead cap money." Okay, that's a lot, so you see where Gunn is going with this. However, that being said, don't be shocked if trade rumors do gain some traction. The Birds currently have 20 impending free agents. Shedding big plays contract would be helpful for a franchise looking to keep as many of its best players as possible, end quote. Now, one thing that Derrick Gunn didn't, I think, realize with this, maybe he did, I'm not sure, is that you can restructure Darius Slay's contract and free up $13 million in cap space. And so while you say, oh my gosh, $26.1 million due this year, $21.2 million in dead cap money, that's way too much for Slay, who maybe fell off a little bit at the end of the year, a little bit. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler, fantastic this year, but at the end of the year, maybe just a little bit. The idea that you just, get rid of him because of that instead of restructuring him, to me, makes no sense. Philadelphia's not going to re-sign James Bradbury, and so what you need is one veteran cornerback, Darius Slay, and then maybe Witherspoon or Joey Porter Jr., or so many of the other young cornerbacks at number 10 in the draft. Then you have the young gun, the up-and-coming guy, the future number 1, and the current number 1 to help you have some stability back there for at least this season and maybe in 2024. I think Slay is still making big plays. I think he's still great for Philadelphia, and I have no interest in trading him at this point. Again, I get where Derrick Gunn is going with this. I just doesn't make a ton of sense to me in terms of, he cost too much money, so let's just get rid of him, because then you're using a rookie cornerback on one side and I guess a cheap free agent on the other side because you can't afford anybody else. You can't afford to keep Bradbury. So I am out on trading Darius Slay. I don't think that they will. I think they'll restructure his deal, free up money, and as I talked about weeks ago, they're going to have money to spend in free agency, even with all these new contracts. They got to, kind of shell out for Jalen Hurts and CJ Gardner-Johnson, but I think they're going to be just fine. Let me know what you guys think down below. Speaking of the giant contract, I figured I'd end on one more quick clip from the NFL Scouting Combine here. Elliott Shore-Parks always doing a great job. He has the Howie Roseman quote on Jalen Hurts' contract negotiations, and you see on your screen, Elliott thinks he's going to be a big deal, but also team-friendly, which is what we were all hoping for. Here was the man himself, Howie Roseman, when asked about the Hurts contract.
I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about contract situations with anyone, Elliott. I think you know that. At the same time, tremendous respect for him as a player, as a person, tremendous respect for the people that work with him to do this, and you go through it in a way that you want to find a win-win solution. You want to find something that he feels really good about, and at the same time that we feel good about, and surround him with good players, and he knows that. I mean, he's a smart guy. He understands that, and that doesn't mean that it's not going to be a tremendous contract for him, because he deserves that too.
It's exactly what you want to hear. Exactly what you want to hear. You want to hear, hey, we're working on it. Hey, we're not going to get into details. Hey, they're doing a great job on their end. A lot of stories about the representation for Jalen Hurts being fantastic. We're also trying to make sure we can keep players around him, and he understands that. And Hurts is not an idiot. This is one of the big things that we always talk about with Jalen Hurts. He's a smart guy. He knows what's going on. And while some quarterbacks are going to walk into that room and say, hey, pay me, I don't care about anybody else, I'm going to get mine and move out of here, Jalen Hurts is probably walking in there and saying, hey, pay me fairly, but make sure we keep some guys around me, that way I can go back to the Super Bowl. You think Jalen Hurts wants to get an extra $3 million a year or go back to 3 more Super Bowls? What do you think Jalen Hurts would rather have? Probably know the answer to that one. Everyone deserves as much money as you possibly can get, whether you work at Starbucks, whether you work at a big tech company, whether you work in the National Football League. But it's a little different in the National Football League because you're trying to win Super Bowls versus at Starbucks trying to, keep that one guy hired. That way you fill up, coffee cups as well. I don't want to rip Starbucks employees, but you get my point, right? Hurts is going to do what's best for both him and the team. I think this is a very good quote to showcase that, and I do expect the contract to be coming very, very soon. Surprised it didn't happen yet, but they got their coaches, their coordinators done. Maybe Hurts is next in the domino list. We talked about that on a previous show. All right, as I mentioned, tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to have as many people join as possible to watch our live show tonight. It's going to be a bunch of fun. We answer all your questions live. It's just a really good time to hang out with myself and Josh Davis of the Philly Special Show, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe, notification bell, and be ready for it this evening. A lot of stuff going on. It's going to be a crazy night. Crazy next couple of days, enjoying the NFL Combine. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show.